This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, alongside my co-host Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Account Management. Today, we're going to be digging into a topic that I love, Rufus, but it's a different spin on the topic itself. It's going to be one that brands and advertisers might not be paying much attention to yet, but I think in the months ahead, they'll be paying even more attention. Recently, Amazon quietly added prompts report to sponsored products. And we think that this could really help change the way of the game on Amazon in a pretty meaningful way moving forward. So to help us unpack this and what it actually means for brands, we've got our Director of Retail Media, Ross Walker, back on the show. So Ross, great to have you with us to dig into this topic.
Yeah, this is a very interesting one.
I thought about doing like a Ross prompt to get you going here. Is Ross good for my podcast? And we could collect the data on them. So,
the click-through rate on that is super low.
Should we just call it now then and move on?
Yeah. Roll on.
Great topic for the future. Need a different guest. No, Just kidding. Ross, we love you. We're glad you're here.
Prompt results be damned.
That's right. So this started coming up last year at Unboxed. Amazon has been building a bit of momentum since then, adding the prompts tab directly inside the sponsored products campaign reporting. Before that, to even understand whether you were appearing in Rufus at all was a challenge. So before we get into the nitty gritty and what's happening now, can we do a little level set on what is the lay of the land? What exactly are sponsored product prompts? How do they work? How do advertisers start accessing this inside their console?
Yeah. We first noticed that there was basically a new sub-tab within the sponsored products workflow within the campaign manager where it was blank initially, but this was going to be where prompts related results would live. But in the course of the last few months, we started to see that those results started to get populated with some actual prompt data. And we can see some KPIs associated with them, like impressions and click-through rate and sales and in theory, spend as well, though right now there's no spend against them, but they are starting to show sales results. What that's telling us is that Amazon is testing the notion of populating your prompts with sponsored product-based campaign data. Whatever you might be advertising in that campaign, that product is going to be a potential landing page for a sponsored prompt result. And even more recent, there is now a report type within the reporting section of the ad console where you can download your prompt KPIs across all campaigns, right? So not just doing a single campaign deep dive, but you can see all the prompts that you're showing up for and what metrics there are associated with them right now. So it's very much the opening stages of what sponsored prompts is going to look like when it's rolled out more fully.
Just conceptually, like if we think of Amazon search, we'll put ADSP on the side, right? We have three key buckets that we've had for years and years. We have sponsored products, we have sponsored brands, we have sponsored display. Conceptually, we should be thinking of this as yet another sponsored product placement. Is that the right way to think of it?
I think the best way to think of it right now is that it's a net new placement for, I think, what is going to turn out to be all the ad types. Whereas before sponsored products was available only in search, then it was also available on product detail pages, then there were featured results, and then there were off Amazon placements. Now there's the addition of the prompts placement for your sponsored product ad. That seems to be the route that Amazon is going here. They're adding it as a new place to buy with your traditional ad in.
Okay, so more placement than ad type. Because I was looking at the auto-generated prompts, and I know we'll get into this, but it's like, why choose brand for this product category? Why does brand have a product with this feature, which is almost more like sponsored brand, like matching brand to search intent versus an individual product. So it seems like it's straddling multiple ad types, which goes to your like placement theory.
Yeah, that's very much the case. And I think what we'll see in the future is that like that right now, the sponsored, like the prompt results are like the clickable instance, like in the sort of blue high, when you're browsing on Amazon, when you search for something, there's now like a Rufus results that props up below it. And there are organic Rufus prompts and there are sponsored Rufus prompts within those now. And it's not highlighted as such, but that is functionally how it's working. And right now, you don't, as an advertiser, have a choice of what prompt you show up for. There's actually no meaningful mechanism to say, I want to show up for a particular prompt at all. And so you just see what has Amazon auto-populated where you are a relevant Rufus result.
And that's both, if we think of in traditional search, like these would appear in the recommended search drop down in the search bar, as well as like the recommendations on the PDP. Am I thinking of that correctly?
Yeah, my hunch is that it will be both, like both the like autocomplete below your like autocomplete type, but also Rufus suggested long tail full sentence queries. But then also like when you search for something, then there's like a Rufus box for you to navigate. And that's where you'll see sponsored products as well, or sponsored placements as well.
And so I'm like curious your take, if we think of the sort of overall evolution of how search is becoming more and more Rufus inclusive and Rufus responsive, like where does this sort of development fit within that? A leading question, I realize.
I think it's interesting because right now the data is zilch, but my hunch is that more and more of the search experience is going to be powered by these longer tail prompts. And so it will be akin to probably like the value of top of search placements overall. If we think about the economy of, on-site Amazon sponsored ads, the top of search placement is the most coveted and valued placement because it's the first thing people see. It's hyper above the fold from both a sponsored brand and sponsored product perspective. Now there's even more inventory in that space that advertisers are going to want to be clamoring for with the Rufus prompt results.
Can we go back a minute to one of the things you said about the level of control brands actually have in this and that they have none?
Yes. Yes.
I want to dig into that. Do you think that's going to be the state of the state moving forward? Or is that something that Amazon will likely open up where brands have more control? Really, what is the role of the brand relative to these placements right now?
There's two things that are happening, right? If you think about in the Amazon or even Google universe, like I could choose to bid on any number of long form queries if I wanted to. The challenge is that Amazon is actually trying to go about re-engineering how people use Amazon. They're trying to teach people to use the Amazon search tool, to use Rufus as a place to do queries and not just to do more straightforward keyword search. So Amazon is trying to build up a library of actual experience around how people can search for this using more prompt-based language. There's nothing stopping me from looking at what prompts I show up for, and then bidding on that whole query. There's nothing stopping me from doing that right now. But I don't think that at the moment anyway, that actually is not the same thing. Because the Rufus prompt is an auto-generated search result. And in that sense, Amazon is totally curating the experience for users. And I think that it's going to keep going in that direction. Is it likely in the future that we'll be able to choose to bid up on a certain subset of auto-curated queries I'm so used to this language. We'll be able to bid up on a set of auto-curated prompts. Yeah, for sure we're going to get that capability. Are we going to be able to actually bid on a query in exact match? Yeah, I think we are, but I don't know if those two streams are going to cross yet. That remains to be seen.
What's so funny about all of this is like the conversation around AI search for so long has been like, oh, keywords are dead. It's all audience based. It's all conversational, blah, blah, blah. And then we're actually going to try to cram all of that conversational search into 3 key conversations. Are you sure you didn't mean to actually be prompting this? And then going back to just show me the keywords that are in highest demand and let me bid on this. I'm interested to see how this develops because it seems like it's a little bit of legacy search that's being injected into the AI paradigm. I was curious on the measurement component, right? The big thing that we keep coming back to here is like, no bidding, no cost as of right now. Any prognostication from your side, Ross, on this seems like a short-term thing. Surely there's a path to monetization on this, like how this could look like once we get cost and bid information around this?
We have a pretty clear idea of what metrics are going to be available, at least right now. We can see things like the traditional search metrics like click-through rate and conversion rate. We can see quantity of impressions and clicks and sales and ROAS. So like those are very standard benchmarks that most people are used to for the sponsored product ecosystem. No spend yet, but like what we're starting to see, at least in the early days where there's not too much, is that the engagement metrics, like the benchmarks, are closer to top of search placements by and large. So like higher click-through rate, like lots of people are clicking, but lower conversion rate because they're like more upper funnel in their search journey. So my anticipation is that the benchmarks will look like sponsor brand top of search type placements from an engagement perspective. And it's very likely that they won't completely supplant the typical sponsored product result in terms of overall reach, because there is just a much smaller number of results, right? Like it has to be curated so that someone can read it. So it's a very tight and limited space to bid on.
So you'd expect a similar bidding environment as top of search, where it's going to be high cost, high placement, high conversion, and yet one more.
That's my thought here. We'll see how the consumer is trained. If the consumer is trained to be like, to start a prompt, and then instead of pressing enter, switching gears and going over to like, oh, we actually think you should be prompt. Here's the curated set of prompts that we think is like actually what you're looking for. If consumers shortcut to that and do that kind of search, then yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I don't know. My experience with using Amazon Rufus and Gemini is that like I search what I want. Like I type what I want and then I see what the aggregated results are and go from there.
Can we all maintain like our own thought process for at least the foreseeable future in some way? I don't need an AI to tell me what you really are thinking is. Along with, Jordan mentioned it, search bar is dead. Another assertion in the age of AI and Rufus and all of this is that the funnel is dead. And recently, our friend Kiri Masters shared an article on this, some research from Sensor Tower. It showed that AI-assisted shopping, it's not about a single funnel. It's more about a pattern of behaviors. So if you look at Rufus, for instance, some people use Rufus as like a search assistant, helping identify what the options are early on in their research. And then others are using it bottom of funnel to help them convert, to answer off some objections, or to clarify the value proposition of one product over another. Given that, I'd say full funnel of different behaviors. How do you think brands should really think about sponsored product prompts in the terms or in the framework of the funnel itself?
Well, if the kind of KPIs that Amazon is putting out are any indication, it's that we should probably still think of it as like a bottom of funnel tool, because Amazon put out in one of its recent reports that there was a significant impact to conversion rate for Rufus assisted search and conversion. Which means that no one is yet marketing this as a way to do really great audience building, really great awareness. So it's like it's meant to be, the results here are going to more efficiently bring the consumer to their final sale. And if you are participating in that, you are by default getting a better source of traffic. So from my perspective, like it is still meant to be a bottom of funnel exercise. But Kiri's results, and honestly, like my own results when I think about using Rufus as a search assistant, make me think that Rufus' position in the path to conversion is going to, like its participation in the path to conversion is going to be something that's going to show up in AMC soon. So we're going to be able to see what percentage of Rufus sponsored prompt, like where did the Rufus sponsored prompt lived in the overall funnel? And that will help advertisers gauge how much they're willing to bid, right? So if I see, for example, there's a high amount of traffic on several sort of out of the box curated prompts, then I might bid up on them really highly, knowing that it might be 3, 4, 5 steps down the line that I get a conversion.
That makes sense. The limitations which we've spoken to today, right? The level of control that I have, the lack of a bidding ecosystem, though I'm sure that will change soon, but some of the limited availability of reporting and metrics, and then just general scale around this, right? We're so in early days here that it's like exciting, but also a lot of question marks on the ultimate scale and impact that this has, I think, in terms of overall media strategy. I'm curious which things feel like, oh, these are 30-day solves. Like these are things that Amazon can pretty quickly knock out on their product roadmap and these become achievable, versus which are the things that feel more ingrained from like a consumer friction standpoint, or things that like, yeah, where you have hesitancy, or you're like, this is actually where the industry is headed and it's all going to be Rufus prompts from now on. I'm curious how you see this generally.
There's a very high chance that like Rufus prompts are the foundation of like your search strategy. But I would see that as being like more of like a 6 month to a year out, right? There's so much investment that's going behind everyone I think feels that agentic commerce and agentic discovery is most likely going to be like the mode of the future. And so, yeah, you are getting away from the search bar to that extent. And so I don't think that these are like early day growing. Like, I don't even see them as growing pains. It's such early days that there's not that much data yet because the current consumer is actually not really ingrained into these shopping behaviors yet, right? They're not used to searching in long tail queries. They're not used to querying with Rufus or even clicking on the curated prompt so much. I just think there's not that much demand there yet, but there will more and more, especially as the UI pushes them front and center more and more.
Then we'll just have you back on in about 30 to 60 days, Ross.
Yes, please.
As this evolves even further and we actually get more data and have more of a sense of what all this means. And then we'll have you again on 60 days later for what it means in that period of time. Because I think with all things related to AI, Rufus, Sparky, all the agents, it just keeps evolving. So thank you for coming on and sharing your take of where we are now. And we'll have you back in a short period of time to see where things stand in the future. Thanks so much, Ross.
Great. Thank you.